You're listening to the And I Quote podcast brought to you by Coterie Insurance.
We will be bringing you conversations with industry influencers and experts discussing a variety of topics focused on our theme, because relationships matter.
Now let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the And I Quote podcast by Coterie Insurance. I'm Bobbie Collies. I lead growth and insurance here at Coterie, and I'm super excited to welcome Brandon Schuh to our podcast today. Brandon, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bobbie. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So Brandon and I met, interestingly enough, through our new CFO. But
Yep.
I've had a history working with Brandon's agency in the past at other carriers. So it's funny that our paths haven't crossed quite yet. But Brandon, why don't you talk about your career path, where you are today, and why you're so interested in technology and how tech is disrupting both carrier worlds and independent agency worlds.
That's a big question, Bobbie, but I'll do my best to try to answer it. Yeah. I think like most people in insurance, I had no intention of getting into it when I was a younger version of myself. I actually began my career as a risk manager. So I was working for, I'd say, one of the larger ladder manufacturers in the world when I was in college. I had a sales and marketing internship with Gorilla Ladders, I'm in Minnesota. It's based in Minnesota, but they imported most of their product from overseas. But I was an intern there, interested in law, interested in kind of all things CSI style, FBI. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to do something like that, which, I'm here now, so it obviously didn't happen. But my CFO at the time and I were pretty close. He had kind of taken me under his wing he was a mentor, and I was thinking about going to law school at the time, and the company had just gotten a big Home Depot contract, which, Home Depot, if you're selling ladders, is pretty much the epitome of where you want to be. And during that time, claims started to come in. Obviously, there's more volume out there, and ladders are a very litigated product just because it's an elevated product that everybody has in their home. So there's nothing uniquely, I don't think, dangerous about ladders except for they're ubiquitous and everybody has one. And the claims are just derived from kind of that combination. So we were there, we were talking, and I said, yeah, that'd be great. So I basically kind of invented my own path at Gorilla. I started out just kind of doing claims work and investigating ladder accidents in every state you would probably never want to go to. It was I think a really good path for me because it didn't necessarily get me super technical on like insurance forms and products, but it gave me the real world understanding of what happens when a company gets sued and what does that process look like. And eventually, during this period of time, this probably 10 years that I was working at Gorilla Ladders, I decided that I wanted to kind of explore a different side of risk. It's always been kind of my mentality that, whatever you're doing in whatever career path you're doing it in, I think from my standpoint, I wanted to be like a driver of sales instead of an expense, right? So ultimately, that's how I kind of looked at my career at Gorilla. I said, this has been great learning experience, but I'm a burden at the end of the day on this company. And I understand that it's a little hyperbole, but what I do, the information I bring to the company, it's burdensome. Nobody wants to hear it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But yeah. I've developed a particular set of skills now where I can be proficient in lending my own advice to somebody else. So I thought, well, I think the brokerage side would be really beneficial because I've sat in the shoes of the buyer for so long, understand maybe what they're going through. And I thought that would make some sense. So
I love your beginning story though of wanting to be FBI agent and then kind of working into
Yeah.
product liability litigation investigation. It's almost equally as interesting, Brandon, right?
Right, right. So there's actually a whole other dovetail there that I could go down, but for about 3 years, in the end of my Gorilla Ladders career, I had on a sidebar, basically not, it was part-time, but I had started my own private investigations company.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
Nice.
I was, and this is all like part of the journey to understanding what I wanted to do, I think, in my life, but it was not for me at the end of the day because I was dealing with kind of the underbelly of society.
Right.
There was certainly like the insurance side of it, but that wasn't the money making side of the business. It was, my cheating spouse, or I get a call at 2 a.m. Just my phone would ring and be like, I'm a prisoner in so and so penitentiary and I need help with my appeal. I'm like, oh, this is not what I need to do. But
So now you'd rather get calls from your policyholders at
right, right. But I don't answer that. I don't answer those anymore. Yeah, no. But it was all part of the learning process, and definitely kind of aligned me into understanding that I liked the business development side of business, because I had to do both during my little stint as a private investigator, where I had to, develop the business and then execute on whatever I did.
So you went from police officer, FBI aspirations into like risk management litigation for Gorilla for products liability into a little bit of private eye into business development for Hayes. And Hayes,
right.
great agency as well. Worked with those guys; are super fantastic.
Yeah.
And now you're landed in this new role where not only are you like using those skills that you developed along that path, but also trying to drive change within the industry and within the agency you're working in, I would imagine. You want to talk a little bit about that? Because it's a really fun time in this industry right now.
100%. And it's kind of this pendulum that's like, it kind of led to a point. But when I started at Hayes, I had no idea what I was doing, from a business development standpoint, besides what I already knew. And what I knew was consumer products. So, I mean, literally my first 2 years in the business, I would walk up and down the aisles of a Home Depot store or a Target or Walmart and literally just look for products that look dangerous so I could call on them. So, I mean, I would go in with my phone, take pictures of, you go look at the back of a box and you got the manufacturer, and I take pictures and I go back to my desk and I'd find the CFO or somebody on LinkedIn and I'd reach out to them. And, I have just a unique expertise where I can immediately kind of empathize with what they're going through just based on my experience. And over the years have accumulated lots of relationships with the E&S marketplace and underwriters and wholesalers and London brokers. And so it was a kind of just worked in a very holistic way where it all kind of, the puzzle pieces all kind of just fit together, very kind of serendipitous almost from that standpoint. Where I could immediately connect some of those dots and make deals happen because of what I had done. But so I was going through the process and I started writing just whatever I could find, what was new and exciting. So, I mean, it went from, elevated products where I knew exactly what to do to more technology, a lot of like writable risk I started getting into. So in probably 2014, 15, when the first hoverboard and electric bikes kind of hit the market, I was like, well, this is clearly an opportunity for some claims activity. So I started calling on that marketplace, and that marketplace shifted pretty rapidly to a sharing economy, right, where those same products were used now for every, somebody wants to use them for last mile or, their commute every morning. So there was a quick dovetail into kind of the shared economy where obviously technology played a much bigger role than it had in kind of my first few years at Hayes, where I was dealing with more just direct to consumer products, packaging, where it was, you find in the aisle of the store, to now more enterprise level sales with, leasing companies and fleet managers and operators and things like that. But again, during that time, like technology intervened, and APIs started becoming a bigger piece of the puzzle. So we started doing more with embedded opportunities and working with usage-based technology and insurtechs that can assist during that role. So I started working with large shared scooter operators, probably 2018, 19, 20, and those shared scooter operators were, early stage, very, very kind of archaic and draconian in terms of how we bought insurance. But then that quickly migrated to something very sophisticated, as that technology emerged and as the insurance kind of caught up to the technology. And thanks to relationships in London, who's always been a very innovative manuscriptor of insurance products, they were able to bring a lot of those policies to life that didn't even exist before. I mean, you think about companies like Google, Airbnb with accommodation sharing, Lyft and Uber with, ride sharing. I mean, those insurance products didn't exist when those companies started. So the market had to adapt and create policy forms that match the risk exposure. So lately, that's what we've been doing a ton of is, our clients have ideas and we have to match the sophistication level of the idea with a insurance product that will be able to cover it. And that's, I think, the most interesting part about the market today is just being imaginative and creative to find a way to cover risks that are out there. I mean, I can't even think of very many clients that I work with now where they come to me and I'm like, oh, I got an easy off the shelf solution for that.
Yeah. When you're in, I think the work that you do is super interesting because the work of Coterie is automated underwriting, right? Kind of pushing out like the same product over and over again to the portion of the micro commercial market right now, right? That is generally underinsured or uninsured.
Right.
For the most part, or it's the small business that brokers like you don't want to touch because it costs too much money. And
right.
Thankfully, we've taken the time out of it and made it more efficient to make it honestly just generally attractive for you guys to make a buck off of the small stuff with us. But like where you're specifically focusing, Brandon, is on like what I like to call like the true risk management of complex risks. And so I think just pointing this out like to all independent agents is we're solving all the problems that are like repeatable and more of that like everyday type of stuff, but it's going to put agents in a position to become more like Brandon Schuh and be like true like crafting risk management programs around all of these new types of risks that exist, because things are changing really fast now. If you think about cyber and OpenAI and all of the new risks that those are going to bring to the table, like sometimes I don't even know how the industry is going to be able to keep up with offering products, right?
Munich Re came out with a very concerned statement basically saying with the ChatGPT style technology that's out there, the cyber concerns, for instance, are going to be accelerated exponentially. I think, if somebody could take my photo, my voice, and apply, all these companies now, let's say use cyber as an example, with multi-factor, everything. And if I'm going to let's use a social engineering example. If I'm going to say, as an insurance company, I need your CFO to verbally confirm a wire transfer. Well, now somebody can take my voice and duplicate it over a phone. So now what do? I was telling my CFO the other day, I'm like, we're going to have to come up with like, post-World War, Cold War, like code language to make sure that nobody, you get on the phone and say, wow, the weather's great today. Oh, I hear there's storms coming, like coded messages, just to make sure a wire transfer or something is actually on the up and up.
Yeah, I actually had I had this conversation with my kids this week. on if you ever get a call from me and it seems like it's weird or it's from a different number, we came up with a code word. Just be like, Mom, what's our code word? So
Yeah.
we didn't say it out loud, so nothing in my house that's listening could hear it. It's not, I didn't text it or anything. It's literally sitting on a card on the refrigerator, so they don't forget it. But to your point, we almost have to like have the human workaround of that, multi-factor being something like that, right?
Right.
It's getting
No,
scary.
I think it's super interesting. And I think that's the big opportunity. It almost goes backward, like the opportunity goes backwards in time because AI is going to have all of this. I mean, sadly, all of this autonomy that's going to probably displace a lot of people, right? And I get asked this a lot by people entering the business. It's like, how do I differentiate myself? Well, I think you have to be able to do something that machinery can't duplicate, and maybe it's going to be able to duplicate everything someday. But obviously, that puts everybody out of work. But what I think is super important right now is storytelling. And how do you tell, specifically in insurance, how do you become a better storyteller? Because cultivating that community, that relationship. I mean, relationships are going to be, at the end of the day, the most important part to retain because that's what nothing else can duplicate.
Yeah. I still, like, all else equal, or even close to being equal, not quite equal, but within the same like reaching distance, I still believe in this industry, it's people do business with people they like, right?
Right.
And they only don't do business with the people that they like if for some reason the product over there is so much more attractive or has more coverage or so much easier to use. But if it's kind of close, they're going to do business with the folks that they have relationships with, right?
Right. And the folks that they believe in,
Yes.
that have ideas and, are obviously keeping pace with trends and what's happening. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when I started at Hayes, it was very much the existing relationships ruled, where it's either your cousin or your insurance broker was somebody that you went to college with or that you've known for 30 years or something else. But I think it's taken a little bit more of a turn to expertise, at least I think, and I hope it has, where you just can't have anybody that you like doing this job. They have to be qualified and kind of experienced in, I think, niche insurance roles are becoming more and more important, where the producer, the account executive, whoever it might be, play a bigger role in supplying the client with an understanding of their program than they used to, where it might have just been, oh, here's the team that does it. I'll see you later for the steak dinner that we're going to have. I'm hoping that it's become more like that, and I think that it has.
Yeah. Well, and I even think about OpenAI as a tool for new producers starting. Like, hey, I'm prospecting, this risk, right? What are some things I should look for as far as coverage in their policy and, risk, management issues or potential risks, right? It's almost like taking, oh, good. I feel like I got to like go like in the back of my brain for this, but the best underwriting guide, right? And just like, having that OpenAI translate that for a producer right before they go into a call. So I think there's ways that our industry is going to really utilize this tool for good too. I'm concerned about the bad stuff. And then I'm also curious how our regulators are going to kind of approach the use of it within our industry moving forward.
Yeah, I think a good qualifier is going to be I don't think AI is going to replace you. It's going to be what's going to be replacing you is the person that understands AI and can use it to their benefit that's going to replace you.
Yes. So it'll become a really great tool. A really great tool. Same as our cell phones, right? Like I mean, there's so much we can access now when we're on the road doing sales that we couldn't,
Yeah. And it's so antithetical to how technology has usually displaced jobs. I mean, usually it's been, you go back to, history. I mean, even going back to like the cotton gin or whatever you want to say, that it replaced very low level, I don't, not demeaning the job, but lower level, lower education jobs, where now the threat is this could replace really technical jobs,
Yeah.
right? Like a law firm or a doctor giving advice. I mean, there are certain things that this could really, accelerate. It's probably not going to be the partner that brings in the business, though, right? Or the relationship that brings in the business. It's going to be the associate that's writing contracts or whatever it might be, that can crank those out on an open AI platform. So the person that understands how to use that is gonna have a huge benefit, I think, of the firm that understands how to use these tools and apply them well, and then make room for more opportunities that come out of it. Because when one job is displaced, it usually brings an opportunity for somebody else to do something more sophisticated and complex somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, when I started in this industry, we didn't have data scientists, right?
Right.
So I'm sure
Now there's more data scientists than underwriters.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Brandon, let's shift a little bit in our convo. I really want to give you an opportunity just to talk about like the venue that you're using to kind of spread the knowledge and inject, the knowledge around technology and disruption within our industry. I know you have a podcast. Like, talk a little bit about like the purpose of it, the types of guests you like to have on, what type of content you like to push out through that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's having conversations like this with people that I like to work with in the industry and that I think are interesting, and hopefully that conveys an interest to the public. But I mean, yeah, my podcast is called AXEPod, AXE, because ACTS was taken, but I think it works. So I mean, the purpose of it is it has been very kind of biographical in nature, having discussions with underwriters, with insurtechs, with entrepreneurs, with defense counsel that is kind of intimately involved in the insurance space, who's ever kind of making news or has kind of a pulse on what's going on. It's just, for me, first of all, it's a good way for me to keep tabs on the industry and understand from the people that are making the decisions what's happening. But it's also an opportunity for me to get in front of people that I wouldn't, usually get in front of. But then to take what I'm learning and push it out to, my network has been a very rewarding experience that I've had over the past. I think I started the podcast in 2019. So I do that, and I also have been writing a newsletter lately that I think I really like the written word too. So I do like putting out kind of a newsletter with just whatever on kind of the docket for that week in news, and try to make that into another way for people to gain some insight. So, for instance, I was just at RIMS starting Sunday to yesterday. Just got back and kind of did a quick overview of conversations that I'd been having with markets and what's going on and who's doing what and that sort of thing. So there's definitely a lot of movement out there. There's people doing some very interesting things. I think insurtechs are really in an interesting position right now to take some market share if they have ways to do it better than before.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is like the next biggest challenge in front of us as an industry? Or like the biggest disruption that you think is going to happen over the next 3 years? Just, thinking about macroeconomics, impact of insurtech, just how quickly things are changing within risk and risk management. There's just a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's multi-pronged. What's the obstacles that we're facing here moving forward? I think it all kind of greatly depends on, number one, I was watching this to see what the Fed was doing earlier, but what's going to happen with rates. I think it's going to have a big impact on this market, because right now, I mean, we are such in like this value growth economy where we, as a marketplace, they're not looking too intensely at margins and profitability. They're looking at growth, and growth is completely pushed out of the equation if people can't borrow money. And when people can't borrow money at a reasonable rate of return, the whole thing is upset. Obviously, we saw this with Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic Bank, but I mean, I'm seeing it too, where companies that have relied on venture money or private equity money, the dry powder is kind of sitting on the sidelines at the moment. So if a company can't continue to grow the way that they've been growing, this puts the insurance market, I think, at pretty great risk of having companies go out of business and then having the insurance market there left holding the bag of risk that has been written over the years. So I think we're really at an interesting inflection point here where I think there might need to be some quick changes to how we value, how we look at this risk. Do we need to collateralize accounts that we weren't collateralizing before because they're taking large retentions? Are we going to be worried about that moving forward? Bankruptcies, things that companies going out of business, things to protect against that. Is it a credit sort of insurance? Again, is this an opportunity to create a new product in the insurance market, like a credit insurance product that could protect against a company going bankrupt and using that as essentially collateral, or something like that. I just think that there's going to be a lot of change in that kind of in that exposed size of businesses. It's not going to happen to the Amazons of the world or Googles or Microsoft, but it's going to happen to these companies that raised $500 million or 10 million or 20 or 100 million in venture capital money that the insurance companies were excited to write, but now suddenly they don't look nearly as appetizing. So I think that and probably commercial real estate risks are probably the two greatest that we'll see in the near future, would be my guess. Yeah,
well, real estate because of the economy and because of the weather, right? We have two really big headwinds there.
And because of COVID, I think pushing everybody to home offices. I think there's a lot of obviously emphasis to return to work, but that's I think that's a more global, holistic, what are we going to do moving forward type of situation. But in the meantime, commercial office space is going to be looking pretty bad on a lot of books right now. So
Well, Brandon, appreciate you coming and joining us today and just talking about all the things you're passionate about in the industry. I do love to wrap these up with just a really fun, silly question. If you were an MLB baseball player, what would your walk-up song be?
Wow, that's a great question. I think I'm going to go really deep cut on this one for you. My favorite pump you up style song is an old one of the band leaders from the Eagles in his solo career. Glenn Frey has a song called Party Town, and it's one of my favorites.
All right, I'm writing this down because I don't know that I've heard it, and if I have, I don't remember it, so I need to listen to it when we write.
My kids are now huge fans of it, and it's a bit of a problem because it's a little explicit in the beginning. So my wife is just like, "What are you doing?"
It can't be any worse than what's coming out on the top hit charts today.
No, I don't think it is. But it's still not something you want your 5-year-old singing in their preschool class. So,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Brandon, it was
Good
fantastic
question.
to catch up. Thanks for sharing that too, because I feel like it always brings just a little nugget of personality with our guests that we don't always get when we talk all insurance. But thanks for coming. Appreciate your talk and sharing your knowledge with our audience, and hopefully that'll continue and you'll get some more subscribers so they can keep up on what Brandon's thinking too.
Knock on wood. Thank you, Bobbie. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the And I Quote podcast, brought to you by Coterie Insurance.
We will be hosting episodes with industry experts on a variety of trending topics this year and would really love for you to listen and subscribe.
Coterie Insurance is on a mission to simplify small business insurance for agents, brokers, and our partners. To learn more about Coterie Insurance and this episode, please visit our show notes below.